sent any homework questions, and everybody's pretty much done with the homework, about 80% done. So I've seen about 4 or 5 of y'all taking the test. So I guess we'll just move on to the next section because nobody has sent any questions. I thought today was going to be question day. But anyway, if you do go to the main assignment, there we go. Go to the assignment, you can actually see the homework is all due and the test is due on the 10th. Everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
You have 90 minutes to take the test. You got 3 attempts, and it takes the higher of the 3. I did go ahead and post. I thought I had it posted. This is what I call the autopilot test. Okay, this is what I want you to work on, chapter 7 and 8 throughout the semester. Chapter 7 and 8 material is due on the last day of class. I do that with all my 155s because, except for about one or two sections, 90% of you know how to do 100%, 90% of this work. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by going over a lot of this. Now, I will take questions on it throughout the semester. So that's something you can do in your spare time. And that'll leave us plenty of time to go over this important section and this important section. Why am I more concerned with Unit 2 and Unit 4? Because some of y'all are going to come back to school for your associate in another degree, or you may come back to school working towards your bachelor's, especially some of you in the nursing field, okay? Law enforcement usually come back after they get their 2-year degree. They come back and start working on their political science, okay? If that happens, you're going to be taking 2 or 3 courses that require algebra, which is that section, algebra, which is chapter 6, and probability and statistics, which is 11 and 12. So I would much rather spend the time on those 2 units than asking you if you know how the difference between a quadrilateral and a triangle. Does everybody understand? So I'm putting my priority as a teacher on stuff that you may, in other words, you need to highlight chapter 6 and chapter 11 and 12 in your notebook, because when you come back for your other math classes, for those that's going to decide after you get out in the real world to come back and get your bachelor's, you will use these 2 sections of your notebook in the first couple of weeks of those 2 classes. So that's why I want to spend a lot of time in those two sections, Unit 2 and Unit 4. Okay? And I can't do Unit 2 if you can't do Unit 1. So that leaves, out of all the sections, the least useful, some parts, is the Unit 3, which a lot of you can do. So go ahead and send questions if you need to, and I'll go over those anytime you send questions. Capiche? Yes. All right, yes, so sir. Chapter 6. So I guess we're going to start chapter 6 because nobody's sent any questions. So chapter 6 is where we're talking about going into algebra. Now the first thing they're probably going to talk about is order of operations. So let's go ahead and look and see if that's what they talk about, because that's what I would talk about if I was going to teach it. Yep, order of operations. So with that being said, let's go ahead and work on primary. Make sure I have do I have my whiteboard up? Nope. Epson, easy. And turn that to transparency and current slide. And there is order of operations. best way to show order of operations, in my opinion, is to, now let me go back. Let me go back one. Well, I can't do it there, so let me get out of this and go to the whiteboard. All right. Let's draw a sketch of South Carolina. Okay, there's your sketch of South Carolina. And here is Clemson. And here is Columbia. Okay? Let's say that you and two other people want to go to the Clemson, South Carolina game in Columbia, and y'all travel, make a road trip, and there's three of you. And you stop at a hotel, and you get a room, and it's, let's say it's $30. So the guy says at the front desk, that'll be $30 for one night. And you say, okay, that'll be $10 a piece. Because there's three of you, right? Yes? No? Everybody following along?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you for communicating. Okay. Now, the guy at the front desk says, oh gosh, I gave them the wrong rate. Now, this, you can use any rate here. You can use $150. You can use $30. It doesn't matter. So he says, I gave them the wrong rate. They've got the second floor room right above the garbage disposal. You know where they call it. Just call it the thing that dumps into the. Oh gosh, you
Trash
put
compactor.
trash in it that dumps into the big truck. The big
Trash compactor.
gas box. Dumpster. Thank you. That's the room above the dumpster. So that room is $25.
We have a trash compactor.
So the front desk needs to give $5 back to those three guys. So the guy down in front gives his grandson a $5 bill and say, take this $5 back up to those guys above the dumpster. Okay? So the little boy goes upstairs and he stops. And what is he going to say? How am I going to give $5 to three guys? So he thinks about it and he runs back downstairs and he says, give me five $1 bills, Grandpa. Okay, here's five $1 bills. He gives Grandpa five $1 bills. $5 bill, and Grandpa gives him five ones. And he runs upstairs, about halfway he stops, and what does he say? How am I going to give five $1 bills to three guys? So he decides to put two in his pocket. And he gives each one $3, or each one gives each guy $1. So in essence, they paid what for the room? $9 a piece, right? 9 times 3 is what? Plus the 2 in his pocket. What happened to the extra $1? I'm waiting. He didn't drop it. He didn't gamble it. He didn't go to the beach. He didn't buy Coke. He didn't snort cocaine with it. Whatever y'all come up with, it ain't that. Somebody want to give me the answer? When I was a kid,
Why is it 27 plus 2?
long time ago, there was a guy in the community, had about 3 teeth in his head, and he used to tell this joke to everybody that he would talk to. And if you talked to him more than once, he would tell you the same joke. I mean, he was just that way. And he would tell people that it's a black hole of math. No, it's not. Anybody come up with the answer?
It's supposed to be 28 plus 2, isn't it?
Well, 9 times 3 is 27.
Oh, I thought we were.
Who said that?
Me.
Good job. You're on the right track. It's not a black hole of math. You can win a lot of beer and a lot of drinks at the bar with this question. I subtracted before I what?
Multiplied.
Before I what? Can't do that. Order of operations. You cannot subtract before you multiply. Now, there's 4 operations in mathematics. Now, somebody tell me why I put these two together. And why did I put these two together? Why didn't I put multiplication with addition? Why did I put addition with subtraction and multiplication with division? Why did I do that?
Because multiplication and division are like basically opposites of each other.
Good. They undo each other. Okay? So technically, they're like brother and sister. Because brother and sister, what do brothers and sisters do all the time? They fight. Okay? Brothers and sisters, they always fuss about something. I mean, I don't care if it's a biscuit or if it's a $5 bill, they're going to fight over it. Right? Because they're siblings. And if you have brother and sister in a mathematical sentence, you do it from left to what?
Right.
Y'all seen these on Facebook? How many of y'all have seen these problems on Facebook where they say, can you solve this problem? And they give you a problem like 2 divided by 3 multiplied by 6. Y'all seen one of those? Well, the answer to this problem is 2 divided by 3 multiplied by 6 over 1. Because when you have brother and sister in a mathematical sentence, you have to go left to what? Left to right. 2/3. Your answer is 4. Some of y'all would say, well, you got to do multiplication first. No, you don't. 3 times 6 is 18. You get 1/9. 1/9 does not equal 4. 4 is the answer. Well, my teacher always told me, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Well, I'm getting there. Y'all hold on a minute. If you have a crisscross of brother and sister, you have cousins. And cousins go where? To Aunt Sally's house. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now, I was teaching one semester, and that Aunt Sally and the cousin, brother, and sister, that's a Hebraism. I came up with that a long, long time ago as a student. Okay? I guarantee you, $1 to a donut hole, you've never seen that before unless you've had me. Okay? Now, you've seen the PEMDAS. But I had a student one time, and she was just one of those people that just wants to irritate you. And that's why I don't pronounce OIL or FOIL or anything with OIL in it. I don't pronounce it. Because she was from Pennsylvania. If I told y'all this story.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, she did the OIL thing with me, and she also said, Mr. McClure, I do not understand what you're talking about, Aunt Sally. I said, well, this is, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I still do not understand. I put, please excuse. Oh, you're talking about PEMDAS. I said, whatever. That woman is exactly why people get divorced. And I'm not going to say any more about my situation, but that's why people get divorced, because of people like that. they have no life, and they have no girlfriend or boyfriend, and that's why they're like that. They go around and they just try to nitpick little things. I need PEMDAS. Okay, whatever. Shut the hell up. So if you're one of those people, just stay at home, okay? Because I don't want to talk. I don't want you going, oh, Mr. McClure, I don't know what ASL is. I know PEMDAS. My teacher taught me PEMDAS. Well, good. Give you a donut. Oh, those kind of people just irritate me. Anyway, so please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So if you're given this question, if you're given 2 times 3 plus 6, then you've got cousins. And if you've got cousins, put these two together. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 90% of the time you're going to use, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, but it's the 10% that gets you. That's why they put those problems on Facebook to see how many people, and I get on there, I put 5,226, and it just blows people's mind. I go, what are you doing? It's called a sense of humor, DA. Anyway, that's how you use brother and sister and cousin. Everybody with me? And I guarantee you there's somebody in here that thought you were supposed to use PEMDAS all the time. You don't. You use PEMDAS about 80 to 90% of the time. It's the 10 or 20% problems that get you like that. Everybody with me? But now you can answer those questions on Facebook. And now you'll feel good about yourself. So let's talk about this first section. Now I am not, you can go ahead and work on this first section of homework if you want to, but I'm going over it because I've run out of things to go over, and you're taking the test this weekend and finishing up homework this weekend. I'm not trying to cram on you, but if I let you go today and not have class Friday, I know somebody's going to complain. So I'm going to just go through this, and then we'll probably go over it a little bit when y'all come back Monday. Use completion of blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and algebra, variables. Go ahead and write these down. I think that's important. Algebra is a part of mathematics, just like geometry, trigonometry, calculus. Mathematics is the umbrella. Arithmetic is one part of that umbrella. Now you're moving from arithmetic, which we just did. We're moving from arithmetic to algebra, which is another part of mathematics. So you got all kinds of stuff in mathematics. You got the umbrella of mathematics. And under mathematics, you've got arithmetic, you've got algebra, you've got geometry, you've got trig, you've got calculus, you've got stats, you've got probability, you've got linear algebra, and so on. Linear algebra. Oh, there's all kinds of different mathematics. You've got, and that's just introductory level. And then you get into combinatorics, you get into field theory, field theory and dynamics, and quantum. You get into quantum dynamics and all that good stuff. You get all kinds of different branches of mathematics. Okay, so algebra is a part of mathematics, and it's right after you get finished with algebra. With arithmetic. Okay, variables are letters. And I think most of y'all know that because you've had to have an algebra prereq to get into this class. And a constant is a number. Sometimes it's called a coefficient. Sometimes a constant is like pi. Pi equals a coefficient, 3.14. ... But constants are usually symbols, where a coefficient is usually a number. a coefficient is usually a number. Like 2x, the 2 is the coefficient and the x is the variable. I don't like writing in red. It gives me heebie-jeebies. Okay? Now your objective of algebra, the main objective of algebra, write it down. Well, actually you need to write this down in red, but I'm not going to. The main objective is to get the variable, what? By itself. 90% of algebra is to get the variable by itself. The only time that you don't get the variable by itself is when you're graphing. And even there, sometimes you need to get the variable by itself. Okay. These are all what we call algebraic expressions. Expression is when you ain't got no... Hold on a minute. Damn Russians. An algebraic expression is when you ain't got no what? Equal sign. Some of y'all might not know what ain't got no means. Doesn't have any. Okay? Doesn't have any equal sign. Okay, so all of those are algebraic expressions. What do you do to an algebraic expression since you don't have an equal sign? You can't solve. Does anybody know? Starts with S.
Simplify it.
Simplify. You are gifted and talented. Simplify. I can say that because I have no earthly idea who said it. So as long as I don't know who said it, I can't say I'm making fun of them. I think, did that come from Easley or Oconee?
We didn't say it.
We didn't say it.
Or did it come from Pendleton?
Didn't come from here.
I know damn well it didn't come from Pendleton. It didn't come from Pendleton because they're like this. Okay? Either you're in Pendleton or you're winged on a pickle, one of the two. So, because you don't want to dare talk to anybody. All right, so these are expressions, and the way that you solve expressions, per se solve, is you simplify them. An algebraic equation is what you solve. So these are all expressions, so make sure you write those down. Now these you can't, right now you can't solve them, simplify them, but in the future we're going to simplify them. Terms are usually made up of a variable and a coefficient. That expression has three terms, and I'll color them and highlight. There's one term. There's two terms. And there's three terms. And that third term has an x to the 0 beside it. Now, I tell students about this or whatever. It has a variable. Let's just choose one, x to the 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. It could be y to the 0. But usually, in any term, you will have a coefficient and a variable. That -5 has a variable to the 0 power. And you can pick what you want because it goes away, because 5 times 1 is 5. And anything to the 0 power is, and I'll just put that, anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So that's why I put that there. because all three of those are terms, and a term is usually made up of a coefficient and a variable. And technically, I could put a variable beside that 5, you just don't see it. Does that make sense? What happened to him? I hope he's all right. He didn't like run out of here. Did I offend him? I hope I didn't offend him. All right, next. There it is. There's coefficient. So the 4, the -3, and the -5, all three of those are coefficients. And I know I may be insulting some of y'all's intelligence because some of y'all probably invented algebra, but we're going to just assume that some of y'all didn't. The coefficient of 4x is 4. I just told y'all that. And 3y is 3, -3. So, and then that last one, -5. I don't know why they didn't include it. Probably going to make a big deal out of it. It's considered a constant because it doesn't have a variable beside it. And some teachers will disagree with you and say that there's a variable there, you just don't see it. But anyway, I'm not going to argue. We'll just call it a constant, a number. Like terms, well, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go back. In algebra, you've got 4 operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And in each of those, we've got what we call single-step equations. And those single-step equations will look like this. X plus 4 is equal to 8. X minus 3 is equal to 12. 4x is equal to 12. And x over 3 is equal to 21. Those are your 4 operations, single-step equations. You would probably have seen these in pre-algebra. Not a big deal. 90% of you know how to do these in your head. That's not where things get messy. Okay? How do you get rid of a positive 4? You subtract 4. If you do it on one side, you do it on the other. That's one way to solve it. Another way that you may hear of, x plus 4 is equal to 8. The equal sign is the river. You take the 4 across the river, and it becomes a -4. You still get the same what? Answer. You will hear me use both. I'll use them interchangeably. Sometimes I'll say subtract 4 on each side. Sometimes I'll say take the 4 across the river. I just want you to know that it's the same thing. How do you get rid of a -3? You add 3, or you take it across the river. X is equal to 15. Any of these, you plug the answer back into the equation, and it should balance out. A lot of you, 90% of you, know this. I'm not saying you don't. How do you get rid of multiplying by 4? You divide by 4, Hubert. Thank you, class, for the interaction. How do you get rid of dividing by 3? You multiply by 3, Hubert. Thank you, class. X is equal to 63. Now, those are all called single-step equations, and that is where everybody does well, just like when I told you how to do those first parts of scientific notation, and everybody does well on that. It's what comes after. Well, what comes after, Hubert? 1. Combine like terms. 2. Distributive law. 3. Clearing fractions. And 4. Clearing decimals. That's where y'all suck. Okay? So this is where, these are the 4 things that y'all suck at when it comes when it comes to solving equations. Y'all can solve those first 4 we just did all day long. But when I throw this in it, that's when y'all start to go, you know, with me?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's do some, because I have no idea what these slides do, and I don't trust them sometimes. So we're going to go ahead and do some. So let's go ahead and do a simple one. 2x plus 4x minus 6 is equal to 2x plus 4. Now that is a combining like terms problem. The first thing you want to do, first thing we always do, is we read left to right. Unless you're from the Middle East, masalama. But if you're not from the Middle East, you probably read from left to right. And left to right, I'm going to take these 2 because they are common terms, or like terms. 2 buckets of water plus 3 buckets of water plus 4 buckets of water is 6 buckets of water. When you combine like terms, the label don't change. Okay, let's write that down. When you combine like terms, labels don't change. Because combine is a 25-cent word for adding or what? Subtracting. So 6x minus 6 is equal to 2x plus 4. Now, I work on a farm, and I don't hire anybody anymore. We used to. But does anybody have any idea why we don't hire anybody on the farm anymore? Because they suck, that's why. They don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to take A and B, and they don't know how to do, and they play on their phone all the time, and basically you're babysitting. So we hadn't hired anybody to work on a farm, I bet, in 20 years. Right? Because they suck. Just like I said before, people now want to start a revolution. Hell, they can't even start a lawnmower or make a sandwich, much less start a revolution. Anyway, I tell people to come on the farm, and I tell them to feed the horses or the cows or whatever I'm feeding. They have 2 choices. They can use a 10-gallon bucket, which comes up to about your hip, or they can use a 5-gallon bucket. Which one are they going to use? Why? You don't suck. Why are you going to use a 5-gallon bucket? It's not as heavy and cumbersome as a 10-gallon bucket. Okay? So you always, and this is natural, this is human nature. You always go for the easiest route. Nobody ever sits there and go, well, I know that the 10-gallon bucket is heavier than I am, but I'm going to struggle with the 10-gallon bucket because I don't want to use the 5-gallon bucket. Nobody ever does that. Okay? Unless you're just plain weird. So, you always go with the smallest bucket. Now, what the heck does that have to do with algebra? I told you a while ago that your main objective of algebra is to get the variable what?
By itself.
All right, your second objective by itself. Your second objective that helps you, and I'm going to put help. It helps you. You don't have to do it, but it helps you, is to keep the variable. Anybody know what the word is? No? Try to keep the variable positive. Why? Because if 95% of the time, you can keep the variable positive on any equation. There's only 1 or 2 problems that you can't, and I'll show you which one that is. Now, why do I enforce? Does anybody have any idea why I want you to keep the variable positive? Anybody? Probably don't, but, I'm just asking. Because if you can keep that variable positive, you don't have to worry about two other rules later on when we get into inequalities. So, you can learn one rule, or you can learn three rules. But let me ask you a question. Which one would you rather learn? Or which one goes back to the small bucket? I'd rather learn one rule than three rules. Unless you're just weird. Okay? Like I asked you before. Well, when you factor 54, all of you go what? 6 times 9. Nobody goes, oh, well, that's 2 times 27. Nobody. Nobody picks the 10-gallon bucket. And people do not want to learn three rules when they only have to learn one. So keep the variable positive. So that means I'm going to pick the smallest bucket to move. There's my smallest bucket. Why is my smallest bucket 2x? Because 2x is smaller than 6x, and I only care about what? What's the only thing that I care about in this problem? The variable. Well, Hubert, why don't you care about the -6 and the 4? That's like a tail on a kite. If the variable is the kite, what is the -6 and the 4? It's the tail. It's going to follow the variable no matter what. You could care less about the -6 and the 4 because they're going to fall out. You ever seen those machines that you pour a bag of quarters and it sorts everything? Well, that's what the 6 and the 4 will do. It'll sort itself out. You just worry about the what? The variable. So I'm going to move that 2x across the river. And when I move that 2x across the river, it becomes what? -2x, Hubert. Thank you, class, for the interaction. 4x minus 6 is equal to 4. Now what am I going to move? That's not rhetorical. I want y'all to communicate with me. Y'all must suck at relationships. Because if y'all like this with relationships, do not get married, okay? Because you're going to end up divorced. Okay?
It's only when she asked me that.
Okay, so it's just math? Okay, good. I thought it was me. I thought y'all just didn't like me, okay? Y'all probably don't, but that's fine. How do I get rid of, what do I do next? Not move the 4 because I want to get the variable by itself. Move the -6. And what happens when that -6 crosses the river? Comes a positive. Thank you for the interaction. I appreciate it. You're trying. 4x is equal to 10. Now, how do I get rid of multiplying by 4?
Divide.
Divide by 4. And you're done. And of course, you always reduce, that's what, 5/2? Hubert, why didn't you change it into a mixed number? Because the directions didn't say that, and I'm not changing it into yards or feet or cups or gallons or a unit of measurement. So that's it. So you just did your first multi-step equation. First multi-step equation using combining like terms. Now let's do distributive law. Any of y'all ever worked with concrete before? Okay. How long does it take concrete to cure? Or some people say dry. How long does it take concrete to cure? 24 to 48 hours, Hubert. That's right, class. Y'all suck. Okay? 24 to 48 hours. Let's say you want to build something. Let's say you live in Florida and you can't dig in the ground because you might kill a flea. So you got to take your mailbox and you got to put a concrete block on the bottom of it because you can't dig in the ground down there. So you make a box 1 foot tall, 1 foot wide, 1 foot deep, and you fill it full of concrete. And you're filling it full of concrete. And while you're working with the concrete, the ring falls off. Now, if you're like most women, you're gonna find that ring in about 2 seconds after you drop it off, you know, if it comes off your finger. If you're a man, it's gonna be a week before you know that your ring has come off your finger. All right? But how do you get, after 48 hours, how are you gonna get that ring out of the concrete? A big A what? Boy, y'all don't know how to do anything, do you? Y'all don't know how to bust up a block of concrete?
A hammer.
First, a BA what? Hammer. Now there's three things here. There's the hammer, there's the block of concrete, and there's the ring. The ring is the objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
The obstacle is the block of concrete. And then the tool is the what?
Hammer.
BA hammer. What the hell does this have to do with algebra? Well, the distributive law is the hammer. Do what? 2 times x plus 3 is equal to 4. What's the main objective of algebra? Get the x by itself. The x is the ring. I can't get to the x because it's in a what? Concrete block. That's the percentage. That's the parentheses. I can't bust up that concrete block unless I use my BA what? Hammer. And the BA hammer is the distributive law. The ring is the x. And the concrete block is the parentheses. So before you start anything mathematically, you're going to have to bust that block up. And no, you're never going to see this in a book either, because I made this up too. You're welcome. So I use the distributive law, which is multiplication. And that's going to give me 2x plus what? 6 is equal to 4. And now I've got the same problem I had before. And how do I get rid of a 6? Take it across the river. 2x is equal to -2. X is equal to -1. Now, most of you can handle this problem without a lot of work or with a lot of remembering. But that's not the one we're going to do. Okay, I'm just showing you what the distributive law is. Okay, here's the one we're going to be doing. The one that I will test you on looks like this. All right, now you work on that one. And of course, I don't expect all of you to be able to do it in one shot. Most of you are disappointments, and I realize that. So what I do want you to do is try. Give y'all another 30, 45 seconds. I think I just shut off my alarm accidentally. My alarm usually goes off right about now. Is that right? Because 1:20 is when class ends, right? I thought it ended at 1:20.
115.
4:15.
1:15? Okay,
Yes, sir.
1:15. Because I usually set my alarm for 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, let's finish this problem before y'all start convulsing. So I got to bust. I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do with this problem. A lot of people, well, you can subtract the 6. Yeah, but that's not going to do anything. You can subtract the 1. That's not going to do anything. So you've got to bust up the ball. Bust up the concrete block. That's the first step. There's no other step. And that's going to give you 2x minus what? What's the most common mistake students make with the distributive law? Anybody want to take a guess? Sometimes it's the sign, but that's not the number one mistake. That's the number 2 mistake. Number 1 mistake is they forget to multiply by 3. They'll do 2x minus 3 plus 6. And I guarantee you some of y'all have done that before. Plus 6, well, that'll never happen in a million years. 4x minus 8 plus 1. Always, after you do the distributive law, somebody tell me what comes directly after the distributive law. Anybody know? Combine like terms. It always comes after the distributive law. So I'm going to go through and combine like terms. And what happens to my 6's?
Cancel out.
That wasn't planned, but okay. And negative 8 plus 7 is what? Negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. So I'm going to rewrite 2x plus 0 is equal to 4x minus 7. Now I put that 0 there for a reason. Because when I move that 2x over and there's no 0 there, some of y'all are just going to look at it and stare at it for 15 minutes. But if I leave that 0 there, you'll say, okay, I can take that 7 over and add it to that 0. But if I just do this, and then if I move that 2x over because it's the smallest bucket, y'all will sit there and stare at this. Let me move it. Let me do this. Smallest bucket, move it across the river, negative 2x, and I get 2x minus 7, and you'll sit there and stare at that for 15 minutes. Won't you? Some of you will. But if I add a 0 there, because negative 6 plus 6 is 0, then I'll take that 7 over, cross the river, and it makes a 7. And 7 is equal to 2. Divide by 2, and x is equal to 7/2. And a lot of people say, well, Hubert, why do we always, because somebody has programmed you into saying that if you have 2 kids, Jody and Susie, and you take Jody and Susie to a park, Jody has to sit on the left-hand side of the seesaw. So if you take Jody and Susie to the Anderson Park, he has to, and you take him down to Star, where does Jody have to sit? Jody has to sit on the left-hand side. How ridiculous is that? That's very ridiculous. But you, as students, have been programmed that the variable always goes on the left-hand side. And that's about as stupid as telling Jody, when you go from Anderson to Star, that he has to sit on the left-hand side of the seesaw. So, okay, that'll get us a little bit going in chapter 6. Let me shut off the handy-dandy recorder. Anybody got any questions